Just imagine for a second that a major war breaks out involving Iran. Tensions are at an absolute fever pitch. And then Iran decides to unleash its most powerful weapon. What do you think that would be?
When we think about a country's ultimate weapon, our minds pretty much jump to the same things, right? You're probably thinking advanced missiles or maybe some kind of secret military program. But it's not nuclear weapons. In a huge conflict like this, Iran's greatest weapon is something else entirely. Something so powerful, it can hold the entire global economy hostage.
And here it is. Iran's ultimate weapon is this tiny strip of water right next to it, the Strait of Hormuz. I know, it might not look like much on a map, but this little channel is one of the most critical strategic points on the entire planet.
So what exactly are we looking at? The Strait of Hormuz is a really narrow sea passage. It's what's known as a choke point, and it connects the oil-rich Persian Gulf to the rest of the world. And, when I say narrow, I really mean it. At its tightest point, it's only 40 kilometers wide. So how on earth can a 40-kilometer wide channel have that much power? Well, because it's not just a channel. You can think of it as the world's economic artery, pumping the very lifeblood of our modern world.
Just look at this number. Every single day, a staggering 20%, that's 1/5 of the entire global oil supply passes through this one tiny waterway. The scale of this is just, it's immense.
And think about who needs it. You're talking about the world's biggest energy producers. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Iraq, Qatar. All of them depend completely on this one strait to get their oil out to the rest of us. Their whole export economy flows right through here. Let's just break that down a bit. We are talking over 20 million barrels of oil every day. That translates to trillions of dollars in trade every year. And this is not some abstract number. This is literally the fuel that powers your car, the buses you might take, the trains, even the planes we fly in. And for the last 40 years, this critical choke point has been under the effective control of one man, Iran's supreme leader. So what happens when this weapon is actually deployed? The source we're looking at lays out a hypothetical scenario. It goes like this. Before a war, Iran sends out a warning, attack us and we will close the street. The US and Israel don't listen, they launch a massive attack, and in all the chaos, Iran's supreme leader is killed. Iran's response? It's immediate, and it's dramatic. All of a sudden, radios on every ship anywhere near the strait crackle to life with this message from Iran's Revolutionary Guard Navy. They declare the strait closed, and to back it up, they start laying mines and attacking any ship that dares to try and pass. The blockade is on. And the impact is instantaneous. Global oil prices just skyrocket by 27%. Gas prices jump by 50%. The whole world feels that economic shock within hours.
And that's just the start. The fallout cascades across the globe. European taxpayers are suddenly hit with a €3 billion bill in just a matter of days. India is the hardest hit nation of all. Major economies like China and Japan are hurt and hurt badly. In places like Pakistan and Bangladesh, you see severe fuel shortages and massive price hikes. And it's the same story in Africa, where Nigeria has to keep adjusting its petrol prices upwards again and again.
So, with the world's economy absolutely reeling, Iran makes its move. It's a political offer. They tell the world, sure, you can use the strait again, but on one condition. You have to expel the American and Israeli ambassadors from your countries. It's a clear play to turn all that economic pain into a diplomatic win.
Now, this idea of using oil as a weapon isn't exactly new. The source points out a pretty striking historical parallel from about 50 years ago, when Saudi Arabia's King Faisal used an oil embargo to force world leaders to bend to his will during a conflict with Israel.
Okay, so this brings us to the real heart of this explainer. What is actually going on here? The source suggests there are two very, very different ways to look at this crisis. Is this just a desperate last stand by Iran? Or is it something else entirely? A carefully laid strategic trap. All right, let's walk through these two paths. Outcome 1. Iran wins. They keep the strait closed, the global economy collapses, and world leaders put so much pressure on the US that it's forced to end the war. A clear victory for Iran. But outcome 2 is way more cynical. In this version, the US wanted Iran to close the strait all along. The chaos that follows turns world opinion against Iran, which then allows the US to swoop in as the hero and save the day.
And this whole trap theory, it's not new. The source argues the US might just be dusting off a playbook it tried to use against Iran's first supreme leader, Ayatollah Khomeini, way back in the 1980s, during the Iran-Iraq War.
So here's how the alleged plan worked back then. First, you get Saddam Hussein to attack Iranian ships. The whole point is to provoke an angry Iran into shutting down the strait for everybody. Then, with the world economy suffering, Iran becomes the bad guy on the world stage, and that gives the US the perfect excuse, the pretext, to intervene militarily and attack Iran directly.
But the trap failed. So why? Well, because Supreme Leader Khomeini was a brilliant strategist. He saw the game being played. He refused to get angry and close the strait. He just didn't take the bait, and without that pretext, the US couldn't launch its full-scale attack.
Now, let's connect this back to our current scenario. The source highlights this particular quote attributed to the US president, which seems to fit perfectly into that trap narrative. It frames him not as an aggressor, right, but as a potential savior, offering to open the strait as a gift to the world.
And that brings us right back to the present moment in our scenario. We have a world on the brink. The global economy is just hanging by a thread, and nobody knows what the final moves in this incredibly dangerous standoff are going to be.
And from Iran's side, there is absolutely no sign of backing down. In his very first speech, the newly appointed supreme leader makes this defiant vow. The war will not stop. The strait will remain closed. Iran will never surrender.
So we're left with this central, nagging question. Is Iran's use of its most powerful weapon a brilliant strategic move to force an end to a war? Or has it fallen into a carefully laid trap, one designed decades ago, that will finally give its enemies the very justification they've always wanted? That's the question at the heart of this entire crisis.